It started on a Tuesday. Not that the day mattered, but somehow Tuesdays always carried this dull emptiness, like a pause before chaos. That day, I came home with two things: a bag of groceries and a suspicion I couldn't shake off anymore. She wasn't home, of course, hadn't been for hours, though she was supposed to be working from home. No text, no call, just the usual silence that had crept in lately like mold in the corners of our walls. Quiet, steady, eating everything. I unpacked the groceries slower than usual, like I was trying to delay something inevitable. There was this avocado she loved that I picked out, firm but not too much stupid detail, but it stuck with me. I placed it on the counter and just stared at it, like it could answer the question screaming in my head. Where the hell was she? I opened her laptop. It was there, glowing on the couch, open like it didn't care what I'd find. I'm not proud of what I did next, but pride left me weeks ago. I didn't need a password, she never changed it. I told myself I was just checking her emails. I told myself I was being paranoid. But I went deeper. Her messages. A synced folder. One file. One video. The room didn't go quiet because it already was. But something in me did. A stillness I hadn't felt before, like standing at the edge of a cliff, not because I wanted to jump, but because I realized she already had. I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw enough in 5 seconds to understand everything. Her voice. That fake laugh she reserves for strangers. And a man's voice, smooth, too casual, too familiar. She wore a black shirt I'd never seen. It was undone at the top. He said something about a meeting. She said, "Let's not pretend this is work." I closed the laptop. I sat there on the couch with my hands folded like I was waiting for a sermon, my ears ringing with that one line. Let's not pretend this is work. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. My chest felt like it was being filled with water and I didn't know how to swim. I waited. I waited for her to come home. She showed up at 9:24 p.m. Wore the same black shirt from the video. I noticed it before she even turned the key. I don't know how, but I knew. She walked in, not a hint of guilt in her face, not even the decency to look confused. She looked tired. Annoyed even. Like she had better places to be. She looked at me and said it. I slept with my boss. Deal with it. Just like that. No stuttering. No build-up. Like she was saying she forgot to pick up the milk. There was no scream. No thrown objects. I stood up slowly, walked to the drawer by the kitchen, pulled out a small envelope I had tucked away for weeks. Inside was a photo. A printout from a private investigator. I'd hired him 2 weeks ago when my gut stopped whispering and started howling. Her. Him. Her hand on his chest. His hand lower. Her eyes closed. I didn't throw it at her. I didn't shove it in her face. I placed it on the table. Didn't say a word. Not one. I watched her glance at it, expecting maybe a flicker of shame, a twitch of remorse, something human. Instead, she smiled. A crooked, exhausted smile like I was the child in the room and she'd finally had enough of pretending. I walked out the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't even grab my coat. An hour later, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then again. Then again. Fourth time I answered. Her voice was trembling. "Where did you go?" I didn't reply. She asked again, more frantic. "Why would you leave like that?" I still didn't reply. Then she snapped. "I didn't think you'd be so dramatic." That's when I laughed. Quietly. Not because it was funny, but because it was over. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car in the parking lot of a 24-hour gym I'd never stepped foot in, engine off, watching as strangers came and went, wondering how many of them were pretending their lives weren't falling apart too. I wasn't crying. I wasn't panicking. I was numb, but not in that cliched movie scene way. It was more like someone had pulled the plug out of the wall and left the machine humming on memory. My phone buzzed 17 times. First her, then her sister, then her again, then silence. At 5:16 a.m., I drove home. Not to beg, not to talk. I was done with conversations. I went to get one thing, my grandfather's watch. The only thing in that house that still held weight. When I opened the door, the lights were on. She was sitting at the kitchen table, wrapped in one of my old hoodies. Her mascara was smudged like she'd done it on purpose to look broken. I didn't stop walking, just moved past her. Went upstairs, opened the drawer. "Wait," she said. I didn't mean to say it like that. Still didn't reply. Still didn't look at her. "You caught me off guard." Now I turned. "Off guard," I said calmly. "You said it like you were reading a line from a receipt." She stood up, crossed her arms, defensive now. "So what? You were spying on me? You hired someone?" I stared at her, amazed at how quickly guilt flipped into accusation. It wasn't shame she wore, it was pride disguised as disappointment in me. "You were cheating," I said, voice still low. "For how long?" She shrugged. "Does it matter? You don't even deny it." "There's nothing to deny." We stood there, the clock ticking like a metronome. Moose, our dog, watching us from the stairs, ears low, tail still. The entire house breathing between our words. "I never loved him," she said, too fast. "It was just different. I needed something different." "Different from what?" I asked. "From me." "No. From this." She gestured around like our entire life together was a badly decorated waiting room. "You're bored," I said. "So you just blew up the house because the wallpaper wasn't exciting anymore?" She looked at me, and I'll never forget it, the exact second she checked out of the marriage for good. It wasn't dramatic. Her shoulders didn't fall. Her eyes didn't water. She just tilted her head, almost like she pitied me, and said, "I don't want to do this anymore." And that was it. Not a fight. Not a scream. Not a door slammed in tears. Just that. I picked up the watch. Walked downstairs. She didn't follow. But as I reached the door, she said something that made me freeze halfway. "You made it too easy to walk away from you." That was the real wound. Not the cheating. Not the lies. That sentence. Because somewhere in her twisted logic, she'd convinced herself that I was the reason she stepped out. That I hadn't fought hard enough to keep her. That my quiet, my patience, my trust were all weaknesses. I left without turning back. And for the first time since this all started, I felt something real. Rage. Not loud, not burning. But cold. Clear. Like a door had been opened and I could finally see the room I'd been trapped in for years. I didn't go far after leaving the house. Just drove until the streets blurred into something that didn't feel like mine. Pulled over in front of a closed flower shop, window full of wilted roses and plastic doves. It felt poetic in the most bitter way. I sat there for hours trying to process what kind of person could look at someone they once promised forever to and spit on it like it never mattered. Around noon, my best friend Matt called. I hadn't told him anything yet. I answered, and I guess he heard it in my voice before I said a word. "What happened?" "She's been cheating," I said flatly. "With her boss. Probably longer than I even know." The silence on the other end was long. Then just, "Where are you?" I told him. He showed up 30 minutes later with 2 coffees and zero judgment. Just sat in the passenger seat like we were 17 again, hiding from the world. He asked if I wanted to talk. I didn't. Not yet. We just watched the sky turn gray. But I wasn't the only one talking that day. She started spreading her version. I found out through her cousin, Claire. She texted me a long, weird apology, then screenshotted Jenna's messages from a group chat. And just like that, I got to see how she was spinning it. That I was distant. That I emotionally neglected her. That I pushed her away. That I never listened. The lies hit harder than the truth. I wasn't perfect. Of course not. But I loved her. I supported every crazy dream she had. I cooked dinner when she worked late. I sent flowers for no reason. I canceled trips when she got anxious. I stayed through the depressive episodes, through the job changes, through the days she wouldn't even look me in the eye. And she turned me into a villain so she wouldn't have to feel guilty about what she did. That night, she called again. I answered. "What do you want?" I asked. She was calm now. Too calm. "I think we should talk in person." "No. I think we need closure." "You want closure? Here it is." I gave everything I had to someone who treated me like a spare tire. I stayed when I should have walked. I loved you when you didn't even like me. And I never deserved what you did. I didn't say you did. But you did it anyway. A pause. Then, I think we both made mistakes. There it was. We. The coward's favorite shield. "No," I said. "You made choices. I made excuses. She sighed like I was the one being difficult. If you just let me explain, you had your chance. And you didn't explain. You gloated. You stood in our kitchen and said I slept with my boss, deal with it. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. She didn't respond. I hung up. I don't remember sleeping that night, but I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I booked a hotel. I called a lawyer. I started the first steps toward legally separating our lives. The house, the dog, the accounts, everything we'd built now had to be untangled like it was never meant to stay whole. But that wasn't the end. 2 days later, Matt told me something that shattered everything I thought I knew. Jenna hadn't just slept with her boss. She had moved into his condo. And she had done it the night I walked out. I stared at Matt like he just told me the earth flipped upside down. We were in his garage, surrounded by tools he never used and shelves stacked with boxes labeled someday. He looked uncomfortable even saying it, like he was betraying me by delivering the truth. She what? I asked, though I'd heard him perfectly. She moved in with him. Like her stuff's already there. Someone saw her coming out with his spare key on a lanyard. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My thoughts scattered like broken glass. There was no hesitation. No time for mourning. She'd been planning this. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't impulsive. She had a plan B. She had a plan the whole time. And I had avocado toast and hope. I left Matt's house without much of a word. Got in the car and just drove. I didn't know where I was going, but it felt like my body needed to be in motion or I'd explode. My hands were shaking. Not from sadness. From betrayal of the kind that doesn't just break your heart, it insults it. She moved in. Days after ending things with me like I was a lease she didn't want to renew. That's not heartbreak. That's calculation. I stopped at a red light and caught myself laughing. Not the kind of laugh that means you're okay. The kind that bursts out when your brain short-circuits and realizes it's been living in a fantasy. All those nights she came home late and blamed traffic. The sudden interest in yoga she never attended. The team-building retreats. It was never subtle, but I was. I let love blind me. That evening she messaged again. Not to apologize. Not to admit anything. But to ask if I could keep things civil when people started asking questions. Said she didn't want to be painted as the villain. No apology. No ownership. Just pure management. She wanted her image intact more than my heart in one piece. So I answered. You don't get to control the narrative. You already rewrote our entire story behind my back. She left me on read. That silence spoke more than any argument we ever had. Later that night, I got a call from Claire again. She told me Jenna's mom was asking why I'd disappeared. Apparently Jenna had told her we mutually agreed to take space. That's when I knew I couldn't just walk away silently. She wasn't done trying to rewrite the story. So the next morning I posted the truth. On social media, nothing dramatic. No names. Just after discovering a long-term affair between my wife and her boss, I've decided to end the relationship. Sometimes love is blind. Sometimes it's just kind. And sometimes people show you exactly who they are, believe them. No comment section. No drama. Just the truth. She called me 3 minutes later. What the hell is wrong with you? No more lies, I said. No more pretending. You wanted to start over? Good. Start with honesty. You're humiliating me. You did that to yourself. Then I hung up. For the first time in a long time, it felt like I'd finally spoken my language. But I knew this wasn't over. She wouldn't let it be. It took her less than 24 hours to go from furious to fake friendly. That's the part that should have scared me, but instead, it fascinated me. How quickly she could swap masks depending on what she needed. When Jenna texted the next day, it wasn't rage. It wasn't panic. It was polite. Hey, I think we should sit down and talk like adults. Just one last time for closure. Closure. That word again. Like she was trying to organize her betrayal into neat, digestible bullet points. Like I'd agree to a coffee date just to politely listen to her reframe what happened like it was a misunderstanding over a lost receipt. I ignored her. 3 hours later, I got an email. Subject line. Regarding Moose and shared property. She'd lawyered up. And she was trying to take the dog. That broke me in a way nothing else had. Moose wasn't just a dog, he was mine before we ever met. She wasn't there when I adopted him, when I trained him, when he chewed through half the living room carpet as a puppy. But now, in some twisted move of emotional possession, she was claiming shared custody. I called my lawyer, told him to go nuclear. He advised something better: calm, legal precision. No emotion, just facts. She wanted to play games? Fine. Let's see who knew the rules better. That night, I sat alone in the hotel room, staring at the ceiling, and realized something that chilled me. Jenna didn't miss me. She missed her audience. She missed the power of being the center of gravity in every room, every conversation. The moment she saw me stepping out of the story, out of her orbit, she tried to reel me back in. Not with love, not with remorse, with tactics. But the biggest twist came the next morning. Claire messaged me again, only this time she didn't just want to vent. She wanted to meet. She said she had something I deserved to know. I didn't want to meet her. I didn't want any more of Jenna's drama spilling onto my lap. But something in Claire's tone, it was different. She sounded shaken, nervous. So I agreed. We met at a diner just outside of town, one Jenna never liked, said it smelled like regret and burnt toast. It felt like the right place. Claire sat down, ordered tea, didn't touch it. Then she dropped the bomb. She lied about something else. What now? I asked, already exhausted before hearing it. She didn't just cheat on you with her boss. She was seeing someone before him. A guy from her gym. Months ago. I stared at her. Waited for the punchline. It didn't come. I didn't want to believe it, Claire said. But she told me once. Drunk. Slipped it out like a joke. I thought she was exaggerating. But when you posted what happened, she confessed everything to me. Said she felt untouchable. Like none of it mattered as long as she kept control of the story. That was it. That was the final crack in the glass. Not one betrayal. Not two. This woman had been running a rotating door of lies behind my back while sleeping in my bed, kissing my forehead, laughing at my terrible attempts at making pancakes. And I had let it slide because she smiled when she lied. I left the diner feeling like I had just stepped out of a fog that lasted years. It wasn't about love. Not anymore. This was about truth. And hers was unraveling faster than she could cover it. She thought she still had control. She was wrong. By the time I got back to the hotel, I wasn't the same person who had checked in 3 nights ago with a suitcase full of shirts I didn't even fold. Something had hardened in me. Not bitterness. Not anger. Just clarity, the kind that burns clean. I sat on the bed and opened my laptop. Jenna had left digital fingerprints everywhere. Emails, shared drives, even old calendars. It wasn't snooping anymore. This was evidence gathering. Not because I wanted revenge. I didn't. Revenge is messy, and she already made the mess. I just wanted truth. And I wanted it sharp, undeniable, and silent. It didn't take long. There it was. A calendar entry from 9 months ago labeled late client dinner. I remembered that night. I made dinner. Waited. Texted her twice. She came home at midnight, said the deal might get her promoted. Except in that same folder was a picture. Her. The gym guy. A rooftop bar. She was wearing a green dress she told me she'd got rid of because it didn't fit anymore. The timestamp matched the client dinner. She had layered lies over lies. Worn them like perfume. But here's what she hadn't anticipated. I wasn't staying silent anymore. I made a folder. Labeled it unsent. It had screenshots. Photos. Email threads. Messages from Claire. I wasn't going to use it to ruin her. That would have been too easy. I was going to show her I had it. I knew Jenna well enough to understand this. Her greatest fear wasn't exposure. It was loss of control. She needed to manage the narrative like an actress needs a script. And now I had the ending. I sent her one email. Just one. Subject, you should know what I know. No body text. Just the folder link. No threats. No demands. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Not once. 5 times. I didn't answer. She texted. Is this a joke? Then again. Where did you get all of this? Then again. You can't use this against me. It's illegal to share private messages. Ah, there it was. The defense born from panic. The shift from arrogant to terrified. Finally, she called. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was cracking. Finally. Not because she was sorry, but because she realized I was done playing dead. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said on the recording. I didn't think you'd find out like this. I didn't think you'd care this much. I thought you'd just leave." And that line buried itself deep. I didn't think you'd care this much. She genuinely believed I was numb, that I wouldn't feel this, that I was just background noise in her real life. I didn't reply. I just forwarded the voicemail to my lawyer. Because now this wasn't about heartache. This was about dignity. And dignity doesn't whisper. It walks away with the truth. 2 days passed. She didn't call again. No more texts. No cryptic voicemails or rage-laced threats wrapped in faux concern. Nothing. The silence was almost suspicious, like the calm that shows up right before a storm doesn't knock on the door, it kicks it off the hinges. I figured she was regrouping, calculating. That's how she operated, never reacting, only responding once she'd spun the narrative in her head 3 times over. And I was right. On the 3rd day, I got an unexpected knock at the hotel door. It was Claire. She looked nervous, eyes darting, hair up like she left in a rush. She held her phone in both hands like it might fly away if she let go. "She's planning something," she said before I even asked her inside. I didn't speak, just let her in. She sat down in the chair by the window and let it all spill out. "Jenna's telling people you fabricated the evidence. She said you hacked her accounts. Said you're emotionally unstable and trying to ruin her reputation after mutually deciding to separate. She's trying to lay groundwork in case you go public." I stared at Claire, not in disbelief, just in awe of the audacity, the precision. Jenna hadn't lost control. She was redirecting it, trying to cut the fuse before the fire reached the spotlight. Claire continued, visibly uncomfortable. She even mentioned filing a harassment complaint. Said if you keep pushing, she'll make it legal. That's when I stood up. Not because I was angry, but because I realized something essential. Jenna wasn't playing defense anymore. She was going on the offensive. And she was using my silence as ammunition. If I stayed quiet, she painted me as guilty. If I responded, she'd twist it into aggression. But she underestimated one thing: I had nothing left to protect. I thanked Claire. She apologized again, genuinely. Then she handed me something I didn't expect: screenshots from Jenna's private backup chat log. Claire had found them on an old shared iPad they used for a vacation once. They weren't just messages. They were instructions. Lines like, "If he finds out, act shocked. Use the emotional distance angle, people believe that stuff. Get ahead of it, spin the narrative first." This wasn't just betrayal. This was a choreographed takedown. She hadn't just left the marriage. She'd set it on fire and drawn an escape map. And I was done watching from the smoke. I made my move that evening. Met with my lawyer. Showed him everything. Emails, messages, screenshots. Even the voicemail where she admitted to cheating but claimed I wouldn't care this much. He read in silence, nodded once and said, "We'll handle this. Just follow my lead." Then I sent one final message to Jenna. Not angry, not threatening, just calm, simple. "You've taken enough from me. You don't get my silence, too. Whatever story you're telling, make sure it's the last one you'll ever need. Because the truth is coming." I didn't hear from her after that. But the silence this time, it didn't feel like a storm. Felt like fear. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. It wasn't a dramatic showdown or a carefully timed trap. It was a fundraiser. Matt's wife had invited me weeks ago before the world flipped inside out. I wasn't gonna go, but something in me said show up. Not for her. For me. To walk into a room and not flinch when her name was whispered. To exist on the same planet again without shrinking. It was at a country club Jenna always pretended to hate but secretly adored, the kind of place where fake laughter echoed off marble floors and everyone spoke like they were auditioning for a better version of themselves. I walked in and saw her almost immediately. Standing by the bar in a burgundy dress, hair perfect, that same expression she always wore when she wanted to be seen and misunderstood at the same time. She hadn't noticed me yet, but I noticed something. She was alone. No boss. No new boyfriend. Just her and a glass of white wine, scanning the room like she was looking for an ally. I didn't avoid her. I didn't approach her either. I just existed. That was enough to twist the air. People glanced between us like a silent tennis match. I heard someone whisper, "That's him," like I was folklore. Then she saw me. She didn't smile. She didn't scowl. She blinked twice as if trying to register I was real. Then she crossed the room, slowly, carefully, like stepping across ice she wasn't sure would hold. "Can we talk?" she asked, barely above a whisper. I didn't say no. I didn't say anything. I just walked outside, into the cold air. She followed. We stood beneath a patio heater. The wind didn't care that it was April. It sliced through her confidence, made her wrap her arms around herself like protection from something bigger than weather. "I didn't know you'd come," she said. I said nothing. She looked down at her heels, then back up. "Everyone's looking at me like I killed a puppy." "I didn't tell them anything," I said. "You didn't have to," she said. "They know." There was silence, the kind that doesn't beg to be filled. "I panicked," she said finally. "The night you left, I thought you'd shout, threaten me, burn everything. But you just walked away. You don't get to be confused about that," I said. "You stood in the kitchen and confessed like you were reading weather updates." Her voice cracked. I didn't know how else to say it. "Try starting with 'I'm sorry,'" I said. She nodded slowly, but no words came. I realized then she hadn't practiced this script. She didn't expect a scene where I wasn't broken or begging. She didn't know how to play against calm. "I've lost everything," she said. "You threw it," I corrected. She stepped closer. Can we just talk somewhere else? Not here. Not like this." I looked at her, really looked, and it hit me. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She was trying to pause the consequences, delay the fallout, reclaim the narrative. She missed the version of me who waited, who listened, who loved in silence. "I don't owe you a quiet place to rearrange your guilt," I said. Her eyes filled then. Real tears. Maybe not. I didn't care anymore. "You know," she said, voice trembling, "you weren't perfect either." "I never claimed to be," I said. "But I never pretended to be someone I wasn't." She didn't. I walked back inside. Not because I was done with the conversation, but because I was finally done with her. I didn't expect what came next. 2 days after the fundraiser, Jenna sent a letter to my lawyer. Not an email. Not a text. A physical letter written in blue ink on thick cream stationery like she was auditioning for forgiveness in a Jane Austen novel. It was 4 pages long. 4 pages of backpedaling, twisting, and self-preservation disguised as regret. She wrote about how confused she'd been, how trapped she'd felt in the role of a wife. She called our marriage beautiful but suffocating, said she had lost herself in trying to become the person I needed her to be. But nowhere in those 4 pages did she write the word sorry. Not once. She said she was reflecting. She said she understood the damage. She said she wished things could have ended differently. But sorry? No. Instead, she attached a list of items she wanted from the house, down to specific glassware. A painting she picked out alone. A rug her mother gave us, which she now labeled as personal property. It wasn't a letter of reconciliation. It was a calculated goodbye dressed in emotional language so she could say later that she tried to make peace. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My lawyer drafted a response. Short, precise, clean. He included evidence, screenshots, receipts, the voicemail. Not for revenge, but to shut the door. To make sure she couldn't come back later and say things ended in a fog. There would be no ambiguity, no backtracking, no room for her to recast herself as the wounded party in future retellings. After that, things moved quickly. She moved her things out of the house while I was gone. Smart move on her part. She left a note on the counter that read, "Take care of Moose. He loves you more than anyone." I stood there, reading that note, while Moose slept in the hallway, loyal and oblivious. And that's when the weight hit me, not of love lost, but of time. Time I'd never get back. Conversations I'd have to rewrite in my memory. Years of trust twisted. But there was no rage left. Only silence. And a strange sort of freedom I hadn't expected. It's funny how quiet the world gets when you stop waiting for someone to return who was never planning to stay. The divorce was filed. Cleanly. Quickly. Mutual on paper. But truthfully, it was the most one-sided ending in the history of endings. Claire stayed in touch. Said Jenna was laying low, not showing up to family events. Apparently, her new relationship, the boss, the one she upended everything for, had already fizzled. He needed space. Typical. It would have made me feel vindicated a month ago. But now I just felt done. Like watching the credits roll on a movie you walked out of halfway through. The papers came in on a Thursday. Simple envelope, no drama. I opened it with the same indifference I might have opened a utility bill until I realized it was the end. Not a symbolic end. Not a metaphor. A legal one. Just like that, it was over. No more meetings. No more letters. No more Jenna. And yet that evening I sat in the kitchen of my now quiet, half-empty house and felt a strange urge to call her. Not because I missed her. I didn't. But because part of me wanted her to see what she'd left behind, not the furniture, or the dog, or the marriage. But me. Whole. Breathing. Still here. I didn't call. Instead, I poured myself a drink, something I hadn't done since before all this, and sat on the back porch with Moose lying beside me, his head on my foot like he knew I needed him more than ever. The sky was this deep violet, like a bruise slowly fading. And I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because I didn't. Anger is heavy, and I'd carried her chaos long enough. She taught me things. Brutally, yes, but some lessons don't come gently. She taught me that love without respect is just a performance. That silence can be as violent as betrayal. That manipulation wears 1,000 faces, and sometimes it kisses you goodnight. But more than anything, she taught me that leaving is sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself. I've stopped asking why she did it. There's no answer that could give the past back. No explanation that would suddenly make it all hurt less. And honestly, even if she offered one, I wouldn't trust it. She showed me who she was, and I finally believed her. I've reconnected with people I lost touch with. Spent more time with friends who actually check in without needing a performance in return. Started running again. I even signed up for this ceramics class Matt keeps making fun of me for. I don't care. It's mine. That's the point. The house is quieter now, yes, but it's peaceful. Moose snores louder than she ever breathed. And I don't flinch at my own thoughts anymore. To anyone reading this who feels the floor falling out from under them, hear me, you are not weak for trusting someone. You are not naive for loving fully. You are not to blame for the lies someone else tells with a straight face. But you are responsible for what you do next. And sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is walk away without setting the room on fire. Because survival is loud. But healing? Healing is quiet. And I'm finally at peace with the silence.